Jones' bland bouffe bourguignon. This is a nightmare. I told everyone she was coming.
They will survive. And when this year's over, and I cannot wait until it is, your readers will somehow get on with their lives.
And I won't? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, what's going to happen when you're no longer the center of the universe?
Oh, that's just great. I am finally totally engaged in something. Okay, maybe I'm being a little narcissistic.
A little. On a scale of 10.
Okay, a 9.3, but what do you think a blog is? It's me, day after day.
I thought it'd be fun. How stupid is that? It just turns out to be a lot of what you call meltdowns, but they don't feel like meltdowns. They feel like I'm living with a totally self-absorbed person who writes this stuff for a bunch of complete strangers. And it's supposed to be a big adventure, but it's not. It's our life. It's our marriage. And here in this room, it doesn't feel like an adventure. It feels like shit.
It was your idea.
I know. I'm so sorry. What the hell was I thinking? And I'll tell you something else. I am not a saint.
Oh, yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not. And it makes me feel like an asshole every time you say it. And do not write about this in your blog.
About what?
About this fight. I'm out of here.
It's very, very different in the book than it is in the movie. In the book, the journalist says that Judith can't come, but the journalist ends up coming to dinner and they end up having a good time with it anyway. Whereas in the movie, insert this gigantic fight where she and Eric break up and the stew is bland and there's all sorts of tension and crying and breakdowns and everybody's hysterical. And that didn't happen in the book. So why would that happen in the movie if it didn't happen in the book? And how do we even know that it happened if we were just to read the blog? We wouldn't, which is it's self-editing. And I think it ties in very nicely with immediacy, because in the movie there's pressure for Julie to tell her readers instantly about her disappointment, which causes her a great deal of stress, and she's freaking out because she has to go tell her readers that she couldn't make it. And then later in the movie, Eric shouts at her, "Don't put this in the blog." And she says, "Put what in the blog?" And he goes, "This fight." So, as immediate as a blog is, I mean, you type in an entry and you hit enter and it's published on the web, a lot of thought goes into it, just as with letter writing. Even if it's not nearly as immediate as letter writing, it's kind of like a day-to-day update. You get to know what's going on in Julie's life every single day. And there's an inconsistency between reality, or what the movie states is reality, what Julie states is reality in her book, and what is written in the blog.
So to wrap things up, at 6:22 last night, guess who wasn't coming to dinner? That's right. It began pouring down rain and Judith Jones canceled. I was utterly crushed. And then on top of everything, I had a horrible fight with my husband and he left me. The bouffe bourguignon was delicious. Not that I ate it. As for the raspberry Bavarian cream, I am taking it to the office.
I started thinking about inconsistencies between book and movie in terms of how it would be detrimental to tell the story differently from how it actually happened, or how Julie Powell claims it to have happened, and how the Nora Ephron and Amy Adams interpret that. But I think that in at least one case, the scene of the lobster death,
Lobster thermidor is coming up, and I am going to have to murder and dismember a crustacean. How will I ever do this? Last night, our sleep machine, the one we have by our bed to drown out the noise of freight trucks rumbling past our apartment, was speaking to me, and it was saying, "Lobster killer, lobster killer, lobster killer, lobster killer." Oh.
it was portrayed in the book as a humorous passage, and it's shown as a serious hurdle for movie Julie. maybe this brings us closer to the reality of the situation. I don't know, but Julie Powell in her book possibly is trying to laugh off something that was truly difficult for her. And in the movie, we see something that's potentially more accurate. Some of the inconsistencies are entirely for humorous purposes. When Meryl Streep is reading Julia's letters out loud, the camera focuses in on the reality of the situation. Obviously, there's a very big euphemism in Julia's letter that's exposed by the seeing eye of the camera when Paul takes a nap.
Morning class ends at 12:30. What? And I go home and make lunch for Paul. Then Paul takes a nap. And later in the afternoon, he goes back to the embassy and I'm back to school.
So the movie seems to let you in on a Julia Child that was previously unknown to the public. Another thing that was interesting to me was the way that time was portrayed. If we were reading the blog and we were getting updates every day, we would read one update every day for a year. So it would take us a year to get the whole story. In the book, there's a lot more time to develop characters and explain plot than in a movie. This results in the movie having to condense such things, sometimes to their detriment. So we get oversimplified explanations and we get cliche characters. The project supposedly took a year, and that is portrayed clearly in the book, but in the movie, the project only took 2 hours, and only snippets of book material could be shown in that time frame. So time has to be portrayed in different ways, and you can do that in a movie by changing the season, or a simple thing of day and night you can change, whether it's daylight outside or it's night, or the scenery around, and that's how you get an idea of how much time has passed. But it's not as accurate as if you were reading the blog every single day, or if you're reading a book. For some reason, I find that it's easier to see how much time has passed in the book. The movie does actually comment on how letters work and how letters are written for certain addressees. The only actual letters we see, or hear rather, in the movie are between Paul and his brother and Julia and her various contacts. And these letters are read aloud while the camera shows certain actions being portrayed. This shows how carefully constructed the letters were in giving selective truths, because the audience, while watching the movie, sees things that are either different slightly or completely different from what is written in the letter, and things are left out or things are added in that you couldn't tell from watching, like how someone felt about something. Like when Julia was pretending to Paul not to be devastated that she was leaving Paris, but she wrote in her letter that she was devastated. And Julie's blog is similar to the letters, only with a lot more addressees, and have to be just as carefully crafted. A lot of the things that we learned apply to letters and epistolary also apply to books and movies, and it's become more obvious to me now that I've tried to see how a book is adapted into a movie and how it changes with the addressee being different, with it being read out loud instead of read inside your head, or with a director or scriptwriters or actors portraying people, or even Julie Powell wrote a book, and in my mind it's pretty flourishy. It's got some decorations and style. I'm sure her blog was the same way, but she kind of went crazy with the book. Reality is shifted and distorted, which is the most interesting thing to me. And it's done in a way that is supposed to please whoever the audience is, or to get the audience to appreciate or empathize with the characters. And people who read a blog are different from people who read a book, are different from people who watch a movie, and so the story changes every time. This concludes my presentation on the book Julie and Julia versus the movie Julie and Julia.